Hi, this is Barry Rosen. Welcome to our sneak preview first class of personal finance and money karma. I need to test the mic. Jill, I'm going to unmute you. Can you hear okay? Okay, so I somehow have had trouble with this mic now. Hi, testing the mic here. Jill, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, I have a new mic and it's not working, so I had to switch to the old one. Okay, thank you. So anyway, I want to welcome everybody to Personal Finance and Money Karma, the first class in our new series of 9 classes starting October 19th. I'm Barry Rosen. Our purpose today is, like when you go to college, you have a first class, and sometimes you have to give an overview of what you're going to do, and that's just part of, the ocean in a drop. You have to kind of know what we're going to cover. And the same level, I always give out a lot of knowledge in my first classes because it's kind of important as overview to everything that we're doing. So this is really the first class for those of you who continue in October 19th. And we'll probably go about an hour and a half today. It's, I have a lot of material. I may go a little bit over time, but I'm hoping to just do an hour and a half. In terms of format, I usually keep you unmuted. I will open up the mics at some point for questions when I do these promos. I don't like to have a lot of questions in the middle of my talks. You can type questions in the chat room and I will look for them, but I will pause at different parts of the presentation and take questions. And in all my live classes, I always do have open mics so people can ask questions, but there are a lot of people who signed up for this talk today, and I want to make sure that we don't get through it. I always start with some Vedic chanting at the beginning of my classes, and it settles the mind and it gets us kind of tuned. So I'm just going to start now with some Vedic chanting. Om Ganeshaya Namaha, Om Ganeshaya Namaha, Om Ganeshaya Namaha, Om Ganapatiye Namaha, Om Ganapatiye Namaha, Om Ganapatiye Namaha, Vakritunda Mahakaya, Surya Koti Samaprapa, Nirvigyam Kurame Deva, Sarvakareshi Sarvada, Sahana Vavatu, Sahano Bunaktu, Sahaviryam Karvavahai, Tejasvinava Titamastu, Mavivishai Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Aditaye Samaye Mangulai Buddhaye Cha Guru Shukrishani Vishcha Rahave Ketave Namaha. Invoking Lord Krishna, Goddess Saraswati, Goddess of Wisdom. This is one of her days on the 9th day of Mother Divine. And also the great ones going back to my tradition of Brahmananda Saraswati. Okay, so let's begin. My contact information, which I'll put up also later, is Barry at appliedvedicastrology.com. Many of you know me from Facebook or my blog. You can actually message me on my blogs on Facebook, and I usually do see those within a few hours. And I do look at my email every 15 minutes, and you can call me. I don't get messages back that quickly with phone calls. So we have 9 classes over 10 weeks starting October 19th. The format of this class is to have I'm going to send you videotapes that I've done. They're 2-hour videos, and I haven't actually even have a bonus video for 3 hours. So I will send you tapes ahead of time, and then we'll have a live session looking at your charts and looking at additional case studies. And I'm doing that based on my crazy schedule at 4 o'clock on Saturdays. It's possible once in a while I may switch it to 9 o'clock in the morning also, and that's Central Time. Again, you can go through the whole class without attending live because it is got copious notes on PowerPoints and 3 hours of videos from previous classes. I do often, this is the third edition of this class, I do often update the class with new material, and I do have some new material to add, and that will come out at some point. So the class will be over by Christmas, and there will be 1 week off around the week of Thanksgiving when I'm in Sedona, teaching at the Sedona Vedic Astrology Conference. So the purpose of this class, there are many aspects of financial astrology. I have specialized. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. I got involved in financial astrology in 1987, and I was very interested in how the markets perform. So I actually became a kind of an expert in mundane astrology and how the politics and the stock market and all the markets were connected to the planets. And I actually spent over 32 years studying that. And I have a newsletter that I put out predicting the markets, and that's what I do professionally aside from my personal work doing other people's charts now. The last 3 or 4 years, people have wanted me to kind of focus on personal money karma, and so about 3 years ago, I developed a course on personal money karma. And most of us, many people who are attracted to Vedic astrology, sometimes have money issues because they put a lot of attention on spirituality and they haven't developed their lower chakras, which are more connected to expressing their power and their money and things like that. So I put together a course so that one could diagnose money issues in people's charts and then come up with remedies for them. And that's what this course is. So we have to learn a whole new language of financial astrology. Mars means something in finance, which is different from how we might look at it in personal astrology. Well, certainly they're connected. So we have to learn a kind of a new language for financial astrology, and then we have to learn how to diagnose problems in the houses. We'll go over the money houses today. All the houses, actually money is energy, and all the houses are related to money in the chart. And then so kind of diagnosing the problems, learning to diagnose the problems and come up with remedies. And I've developed both Vedic and Western remedies. I have 2 weeks on remedies in the class, Vedic and remedies. So today we're going to have an overview. And because I'm kind of a spiritual person, spirituality is not opposed to finance. I am going to kind of link finance to the 8 aspects of Lakshmi and wealth, which is the first thing that we'll do today. And it's particularly appropriate because we're on the 9 days of Mother Divine, and we're finishing up the 9th day today and moving toward Victory Day tomorrow. So I will talk about the 8 aspects of Lakshmi connected to wealth. And wealth is not just physical money. It's, there are other things that Lakshmi brings us: friendship, courage, the ability to manifest our desires. There are all kinds of aspects of wealth that can be blocked in a chart that are part of the process of clearing. So in the second week of the class, which will be October 19th, you can, as soon as you sign up, you can start taking the class by video. We'll talk about all the houses, particularly the second house and the 11th houses. And then we move into investment astrology a little bit, looking at the part of fortune, the yogi points, and the Sri Lagna, things I've written articles about, and talking about secrets of tithing. I'm going to go over that a little bit again today to give you something practical. I also have a new lesson that I've added that's not listed here on timing periods of wealth, and that's actually, that was lesson 6 actually. 6 timing. So we have to understand how these kind of show up in the chart. And I have a lesson I'm probably going to redevelop it this time in the third edition. And then again, when looking at traditional Vedic remedies, mantras, pujas, and offerings to release blocks, and I'm particularly good at diagnosing blocks for money. I can also look at and see what you're good at investing in your chart, but most people don't have good karma for investing anyway, so it's just good to be in traditional. Because I've been in finance for so many years, I also bring in a kind of a lot of practical information into the chart about bringing in the lessons of the money gurus and the karma, which in learning, just learning practical things about saving and realizing when you're overspending and all kinds of practical things that we all need to learn about money that they don't teach us in high school. I hope to add a bonus lesson on Bitcoin just because people sometimes like to kind of do that. And I may add another lesson. I think I have another lesson that in the class in the second edition too on Arudas and how we forecast income. But anyway, very exciting stuff. And I hope you'll join me. So during the class, obviously, I want you to be very specific with questions. During this presentation, I'm not in, some people ask me about their charts, or some people ask me questions about what I think of the stock market's going to do. I mean, those may be out of context for this lesson. If I can, I'll get to them. But do focus the questions on the material that I've presented, and I appreciate that. Okay, books I recommend, for those of you who want to study laws of primary, especially the Bible, to me is Catherine Ponder's book, The Dynamic Laws of Prosperity. She was a Unity minister and really looked at, people's habits and thinking around money, and it's a good book to assess how you think about money also. And then those of you who are Vedic scholars, you can pick up the Encyclopedia of Vedic Astrology, Wealth and Prosperity by Shankar Andawal, who goes into a lot of detail, but more so a lot of the traditional Indian books on financial astrology kind of talk about all the yogas for wealth, the dana yogas, and I probably should add a class on that. I find with yogas that sometimes they only manifest during very short periods of our life, and we do have to look at them when we're timing, periods of wealth in our life, and I think we'll be going over that again. I do have a lot of material on investment astrology. I have a 43 lesson class on financial astrology if you want to learn how to time markets, using Vedic astrology. I am the #1 expert in the world on it. I've gotten bored with it because I did it for 30 years, so most of you don't see me writing about it anymore on Facebook and in my columns, and that's just because I did it for 30 years, and I'm more interested in spiritual astrology and helping people with their personal problems, and I've changed my focus more recently. But those of you who want to study investment astrology, you can pick up Vasudev's book, which I think is on Amazon, Vedic Astrology and Money Matters. It's probably one of the best books out there. A lot of books are out of print, and it's hard to find good books on Vedic astrology. Okay, so before I begin, I think I can unmute your mics. So I think if you have a quick question, I think I have unmuted you. I may be able to unmute you. I think I have you unmuted, but okay, if not, I'm going to have to play with the mic system here. Let's see. Okay, all of you are muted. So anyway, I will unmute you later for questions. I may have to do it one at a time, and it gets a little raucous because people have things going on in the background. Sometimes you have to. Okay. So here's part 2 of our presentation, the 8 aspects of wealth and spiritual dimensions of money, finding wealth in your chart. So first of all the houses in the chart are connected to money because money is energy. So so often this is connected to self-esteem and whether we feel good about being open to money. And so often Saturn and Ketu are the big blocks in people's charts. And some people just have luck with money and it just comes to them naturally. But so the money houses, the first house is connected to fame, status, prosperity, livelihood, and proficiency, and certainly our health. And if we don't have good health, then well, the money doesn't mean anything. So first house. Second house is probably the most primary money house, but it's connected to savings. It's not connected to income. It's connected to our attitude towards savings, the attitude our family gave us about money we've acquired from our family, and the ancient texts actually call it the house of storage. And in ancient times, if you grew grain, you had a big bin and you saved all your grain for the winter, so you'd have lots of savings and grain in your bin so that you could get through the winter. And we live in a different society today, but that's still very true with farmers. They harvest in the fall and they have their bins, and that's kind of their wealth. I work with a lot of farmers. Third house sometimes is about courage. It's sometimes the ability to be an entrepreneur, to go into business yourself. I kind of see that in that respect. Fourth house is about property, vehicles, comforts, agriculture, land. So it's a very important house also. And some people are good with property, but they don't have any cash flow. So sometimes you may have one of the houses working, you may have property, but you don't have income. And so we always have to kind of diagnose what's going on. Fifth house is the house of speculation and investment, and we kind of see it as children as wealth. And then the sixth house is, debt and theft. So it's going to be loss of wealth. Seventh house, business partners come out of the seventh house beside marital partners, commercial activities, diplomacy. It's a place of professional happiness. Eighth house is inheritance, unearned money from insurance or lotteries, losses from debts, money from partners, could be money from your spouse. So eighth house is an important money house. Western astrology always looks as the eighth house is important. Ninth house is the house of good luck, good fortune, wealth. Wealth is education, higher wisdom. 10th house, profession, power, ambition, trade. 11th house is an income house. It's a house of gains, fulfilling desires, and our ability to fulfill desires. Now, it turns out you don't really look at the 11th house for income. In Jaimini astrology, if I look at the 11th house from the Aruda Lagna, which is something that we'll have to go over because people for years have been making the mistake, they don't understand why their income is blocked, but it's usually something connected to the 11th house from the Aruda Lagna more than the 11th house in general. 11th house is the ability to fulfill your desires. I looked at the 11th house for groups and friends. You can sometimes look at it for income, but it's really not the primary giver of income in the chart. And then 12th house is investment expenditures for business expansion, losses, repayment of debt, and living abroad, things like that. So all the houses have money in them, and it's all over the chart. Now, because I've been involved in meditation and spirituality for so many years that I've really worked on kind of integrating spirituality and wealth, and so that's what this first part of this talk is about. So the word sadhana, which is refers to our meditation practice, is the wealth that never dies, and so it's thought that people can accumulate all kinds of money into their bank accounts and they die and it goes to their family and or sometimes maybe they give it to charity or something like that. But sadhana is the wealth that never dies. So when you do good deeds and help people, when you meditate regularly, you accumulate an inner wealth that never dies. And that's always the basis of outer wealth. And if you meet people that have a lot of outer wealth, but they don't have a lot of inner wealth. So we want kind of 200%. As an astrologer, which is kind of a priest, I've always, I've kind of been moving back to my roots. I do daily pujas and I do blessings for people and I give people mantras. My goal is to kind of to help people help heal suffering, and that's what I'm here to do. And sometimes people suffer because their income is low or they're having a serious money problem. So that's certainly why I've developed this class And I do readings on this also. If you don't want to take a class, you can always just sign up for a reading on your personal money problems. But we have to decide, are we here to, there's some people, I actually met a man who was attracted to my investment letter, and he said, "Oh, I want to have more wealth than Bill Gates," and that was his ambition. And um, you know, there are a lot of us that think that way. There are people that think that way, and the trick with people who have a lot of money are here to help others, actually. And the great philanthropists are, Carnegie and Andrew Mellon and all these people. They made all this money, and they knew they had to kind of give back to society. So even if you want to accumulate a lot of wealth in your life, and there's nothing wrong with that, you have to think about it, why you want to do that, and it should be to give back to others. And we've seen that with really great men in their charitable institutions. And so tithing is always important for giving wealth, and even when we don't have a lot of money. And if you read my article in the blog yesterday about tithing, when we give, we always give back. Tithing is the most important thing, most important secret for increasing our money. Even when we have nothing or next to nothing, even if we have nothing, we can go volunteer at a soup kitchen and feed other people, or but we always give. And so one of the secrets of wealth is how much service we give, regularly giving to charities. If we can't if we don't have any money to give to charities, then we can volunteer and help others. So that's that. Seva and charity and philanthropy are very important to increase wealth. I always had this vision, and I don't think it's kind of unrealized, that I would work with fund managers and help them make a lot of money so that they could, donate it to and help the world. And there are people, if you meet really good people that do think that way, but you meet people who are very greedy, and ultimately they lose what they have. So this Lakshmi lesson on the 8 sources of wealth is based on a talk my guru gave. It's in a book called Purnavana New Again. And he talked about the 8 aspects of Lakshmi, which are very traditional in Vedic culture. I posted a picture of that on my blog the other day. There's actually sometimes you see Lakshmi with gold coming out of her hand. Sometimes you have her holding grain. Sometimes you see her with an elephant. These are the different aspects of Lakshmi, and I have always I try not to not everybody's into all these Vedic deity pictures, but I had thought about bringing the pictures in so that people could see what I'm talking about, but it doesn't always matter. Okay, so the first aspect of wealth is called Dana Lakshmi, which means material comfort, the physical wealth. And you meet people, sometimes they inherit money, but they're not able to kind of fulfill their desires. I mean, sometimes you meet very rich people and they roam around the beach, and they drink a lot, and they sit on and they're not really do anything, and they're often miserable because they have this inherited money, and then they get into fights with their relatives about it, and they feel guilty about inheriting this money, which they don't feel like they deserve, and then they squander it and they get into drugs and things like that. And that's not true of everybody, but it is kind of it's only physical comfort, material comfort. That Dana Lakshmi is only one aspect of wealth, and you can find this in people's charts. There are all these Dana yogas that we can study, and when you have when you have these yogas between the 2nd Lord and the 9th Lord, the 2nd Lord and the 11th Lord, the 2nd Lord and the 5th Lord, 2nd Lord and the 11th Lord, those combinations, they're called Dana yogas, and they create wealth. Now the question is, when is that going to manifest in your chart? Even if you have Lord of the 9th and the 2nd, it doesn't mean you're wealthy all the time. It might be, if there are other factors in the chart, but it may come during a certain period when that yoga fructifies. So one of the I don't pay too much attention to yogas, because sometimes they don't manifest until a very certain period of your life, and if until they manifest, we sometimes feel like we suffer. Um, we have wealth as health. Jana Lakshmi. My computer got unplugged here, so the battery's going down. So this is called wealth as health. It's often translated as food or agriculture. I think that this aspect of wealth may be associated with food and health. It's, people often spend a lot of energy acquiring wealth, and then they spend half of that money on their health to get it back. And you've seen business people like that. They work so hard, they finally retire in their 60s and their health falls apart, and they have all this money in the bank, but they can't really enjoy it. So health is an important aspect of life, and if you don't take care of your health, which is an aspect of wealth, then you can't really enjoy anything. You have people who can't sleep at night, and they have all this money in the bank, but they can't sleep at night, and they're kind of a wreck. So health is an important aspect of wealth, and gaining health is an important aspect of wealth. And you may have good health. You have to appreciate that that's an important aspect of wealth. I work with farm communities a lot, and they're a wealthy bunch, and their land and their livestock and their crops always make them feel abundant, and that's another aspect of Jnana Lakshmi. It's that wealth of accumulating, connected to the second house, storing. Taurus is the natural second sign of the zodiac. It's connected to food. And when Taurus is very strong, the second house is very strong and well aspected by benefics. Venus, particularly in her own sign in the second house, is a major yoga here. You can get, you can have the ability to hold on to money and to save it, and to have a lot of personal wealth. Strong moon in Taurus or moon in Cancer can also be good for wealth in that respect. Then we have Vijaya Yoga, meaning success. Now you meet people who they just don't have any luck manifesting. They start 15 different projects and they have 15 different ideas to get wealthy, and they're kind of creative, and none of them work, and they keep falling on their face. I had a friend like this. It was very kind of frustrating. And this is connected to Vijaya Lakshmi. You may not have the ability to manifest your desires, and if you do, then you're very lucky. And so you may not have a lot of cash, but if you can fulfill your desires, that's actually a really kind of powerful thing to have. And certainly the ninth house is often connected to this. Having the good luck from the past lives to kind of do that, if that's kind of well placed. I have Lord of the Ninth in the first, and I actually probably have a lot of this energy, the ability to kind of fulfill my desires in that way. And sometimes it takes a lot of courage to overcome the obstacles, and that's part of Vijaya Lakshmi. You have to kind of find, it's also, I think I bring that up next, it's kind of wealth is courage. It's called Darya Lakshmi. The ability, the courage to go forth. I think the third house is very important for this. If you have a strong third house, you have the courage to kind of go forth and take an entrepreneurial adventure and make it happen. And there's that expensive expression, nothing ventured, nothing gained. And sometimes people are afraid to get out and try. They sit in their house and they say, oh, I'm no good, I can't do it. You don't have any the courage. You have to see life as a game, to be adventurous and not be afraid of making mistakes. And that's the aspect of courage and Darya Lakshmi, the ability to kind of, there are people sometimes who keep trying things, they fall on their faces, and they get up and they keep going, and they eventually succeed. And the famous story of Edison, I think he found 200 ways that the light bulb didn't work, but he kept making new light bulbs, and he eventually, changed the world by creating the electric light bulb for us. And but he fell on his face a lot, but he got back up. So he had the courage to continue. You have to have a strong Mars to have Darya Lakshmi, because you have the courage and you see it all as a game and fun, and that's important. Wealth is friendliness, Adi Lakshmi, the fifth type of wealth. It's the ability to kind of socialize and have a caring and compassionate sense of belongingness. Are you a type of person, that is at home talking with all kinds of people? I mean, you see this with little kids. if you go to a wedding, you know, what happens at the wedding? Well, the old people talk to the old people, and the kids play with the kids, and I mean the teenagers play with the teenagers, and they don't dare talk to their parents or their grandparents. And the little kids kind of talk to everybody because they have this natural sense of caring, compassion, and belongingness, and friendliness. And put Venus in the first house or Jupiter in the first house. You meet people with Venus or Jupiter in the first or seventh houses. They just have this strong sense of connecting to people. And when you can connect with people, you have a way to be successful. You make deals. You have relationships with people. You make things happen because you know how to socialize, to be friendly, to connect with people. And that's an important aspect of wealth. And it may not have a lot of inherited money, but you may be a great networker because you've got Venus or Jupiter in the first or the seventh houses, and that allows you to kind of just really kind of connect with people really well. Then you have Gaja Lakshmi, good fortune, and sometimes it's just like connected to the ninth house. It's just having a lot of inherited wealth or having a lot of good luck from the past. We've done a lot of good deeds in the past. We've tithed in the past, and we come back and we're sometimes given a lot of money. We need to use it to help people. We see this sometimes with blue bloods, and we don't, particularly maybe in England anymore. I don't know how many we don't really have blue bloods in America, but you have people in the royal family. They have a lot of wealth, and I don't know. I don't really know if the royal family, they share their money there very well. But you meet people who have inherited a lot of money, and they spend their whole life kind of helping others with it, and that's kind of a very special quality. It's kind of Gaja Lakshmi, having that ability to kind of give back to others. You see this kind of with kings and queens sometimes. And the true nature of the kings and the queens before they got corrupted was, what can I give to my people? How can I share my wealth with my people? My people are going hungry. How can I help them? That kind of blue blood nature is really kind of very, very wonderful. Um, Sun in the first, connected to Jupiter could also kind of create this kind of energy, just kind of this royal energy of sharing and generosity. Venus in the first house again, Jupiter aspect in the first house, even Moon in the first house can give these kind of dignity and fortune qualities of sharing and being generous with others. And then one of the highest aspects of wealth is called Vijaya Lakshmi and Moksha Lakshmi, and that they're connected to knowledge and to remembering the source of our knowledge. So there's some people like myself, is that your knowledge is a form of wealth. Again, that's something we can honor Saraswati with today. Um, you know, my Jyotish collection of books is, probably my source of wealth. I mean, what do I spend most time with is studying the Vedas, studying Jyotish, and that's my source of wealth. And that's Vijaya Lakshmi. It's wealth, it's knowledge, and a lot of you may have that, and you may not have money in the bank, but you have a lot of wealth from education, from studying, and things like that. And then knowledge of our source, memory of our source. So, when we do suffer, if we have problems with money, if we have problems with health, we have other problems with the other aspects of Lakshmi, that suffering should point us back to God, to our source. I mean, the whole point of suffering in our chart is going to take us to the 12th house toward moksha. And when things don't work, we turn to God. And, things fall apart in the 8th house. We have unexpected accidents and illnesses. We eventually turn to the 9th house to kind of find, why am I suffering? We turn to God. Ultimately, we need to kind of go back to our source, and that's the real source of wealth, is discovering that our inner divinity, our meditation practice, our sadhana is the biggest source of wealth. My spiritual teacher put it, he said, the moment you become aware of your source and your infinite past, your whole life changes. Like somebody suddenly becoming aware of how wealthy he or she is. It causes a shift in awareness. Suddenly you become aware, oh, I have several $billion in my bank account. The style of walking will change immediately. That is the awareness of the source. So spiritual initiations are, the basis, for people who are having money problems, I actually encourage them to, start meditation and get into sadhana, and to because that's the basis of everything. And I started the lecture by talking about sadhana, the wealth that never dies. We have to return to our source, to find the real source of wealth, because relative money in the bank accounts can go up and down. And another aspect of wealth of Lakshmi is progeny, or continuation of our ancestral chain. And sometimes children in the fifth house are continue an important source of wealth because they continue the race, and continuing the race is a way of passing down our wealth to future generations. And now we have a problem where children rebel against their parents, and parents are going to really upset because they their children, they put all their energy into their children leave them and don't want to talk to them anymore, and there's this whole loss of wealth that happens there. So all these things are kind of aspects of wealth. So I'm going to talk about this in Sedona. So but I was going to talk about moksha in Sedona. I'm giving a lecture on moksha and the blocks to moksha. So why are we here? How much money can we really take with us? That is a famous movie from the 30s called "You Can't Take It With You," and it was about this wonderful, quirky family, and Gary Cooper was in it. And it wasn't Gary Cooper. It was anyway, wonderful movie. You should watch it if you haven't seen it. I'm sure it's available on streaming. Everything is now, but it's about this wonderful, quirky family, and it was set in the Depression. They didn't have a lot of physical money, but they had so many other things, and it was really, an embodiment of realizing we all have wealth. We all have some aspects of the 8 aspects of Lakshmi. And if we give to others, if we use our money to help others through charity, through donation, then we're serving the reason why we're here on the planet. I always tell people, because I used to deal a lot with speculators, I always tell them, well, if you don't tithe, if you don't take 10% or 20% of your winnings, on a regular basis and tithe, you're not going to be successful and accumulate wealth. So very important to tithe and accumulate, again, as we talked about early in life. Okay, this is the first part of my presentation. I'm gonna see if I can unmute you all. What happens is, if you have a question, you can type it into the chat box. I can also try to unmute you if you want to raise your hand. Those of you who go to webinar, you can kind of raise your hand and I can unmute you. If I try to unmute you all, I'm going to get somebody's TV in the background and somebody's wife vacuuming and stuff like that. But if you have any questions on this section, you can raise your hand. You can put a little chat out. Okay, so let's go on to a little bit about business astrology. Planets and signs. So there's a whole new way that, most of you know planets and signs, in other ways, but we have to kind of understand them in terms of business and finance. And I'm just going to quickly go through this because it's more kind of cookbook stuff and you can learn it on your own. But each industry is kind of connected to a sign of the zodiac. So Aries is connected to kind of wheat and iron and steel and coal and metals. Taurus to kind of sugar and wheat and clothing and cotton and cattle. Obviously Taurus the bull, having livestock. Taurus is a very kind of banking sign. It's connected to exchanges, money manners, money and banking, jewelry. Taurus is the most material sign of the zodiac. So fine jewels and fine art and ceramics, anything kind of physically beauty that's valuable, gets very connected to Taurus. Gemini is connected to publications, vehicles, railway, casinos, colleges, and educations. Anyway, there's no point in me going through this. This is the type of material you can find in Vasudev's book if you want to kind of study it. I kind of talk about this more in my investment astrology classes, which are available. Now, let's look at the planets and business and finance. So the Sun and Leo are connected to banking, bankers, CEOs, senior officials, political leaders, self-expression, vitality, power, multimillionaires. It rules. The Brihat Samhita says that when the Sun goes into Leo, you should invest in gold, and it usually works. Actually, it's about August 15th. And so this Leo is very connected to gold. Silver is more connected to the moon and Venus. The moon is in finance and business is connected to price fluctuation, the masses, common people, public opinion, governs things like dairy, milk. I saw when I was looking at somebody's chart, I was seeing that they had their part of fortune, which I wrote an article about a few weeks ago, in Cancer, which means that they should have luck with dairy. So if they were to invest in dairy farms or milk companies, they might do well. Again, the problem with investment is, we'll talk about in the investment lesson, is you want to have luck with something in your chart, but you also have to do due diligence and actually find out if the company is oversold, has good prospects for the future, and that kind of thing. So there's always these two sides to investment. You have to there's three sides with investment in your chart. One, you have to have luck to make money in investment. Two, you have to invest at times that you're going to make money. And three, you have to invest in things that are good for your chart. And then you still have to do all the due diligence and not, pick things that are going to make money that are oversold and that you have a chance of that look good. Anyway, I wanted to quickly go through this. I just wanted to show you there's a kind of a whole language for planets and business and finance. I have another section on this here. I do use the outer planets in investment astrology. The outer planets are important: Uranus, Pluto, and Neptune. They govern collective consciousness. They are important. For 30 years, I've seen all kinds of major events happen because of the outer planets. Very important in mundane astrology. But again, if you're interested in my investment astrology program, go to my website, click under finance, financial astrology on the top tab, and I have 43 videotape lessons on how to predict the markets. That's not something that we're not doing in this class. I have a brief lesson on it, but I just wanted to show you. Even the nakshatras are connected to various industries, and again, I'm just pointing this out to you because it's just to show you that it exists. Okay, let's move on to something that's more practical. So I'm just going to give you, let's see. Okay, so I have a couple people who have questions. Somebody has questions about Dr. Rashi. Somebody has a question about Jupiter going through the Gandanta. Okay, so let me answer those questions real quickly before I move on. So Dr. Rashi, I do teach in my personal astrology classes. To me, Dr. Rashi is when, because of the lunar day that you're born with, certain signs of the zodiac are kind of obscured. And they more so have an impact psychologically. Again, Dr. Rashi is part of the Tithys and the lunar days, and so it has an effect on the mind. And Dr. Rashi is very real. We'd have to have a whole lesson on Dr. Rashi, but there is a connection to Dr. Rashi and financial astrology. If, let's say, your second house is a Dagda house, Jan, then you may have a bad attitude about money because of the lunar day that you were born in, and we'd have to do some remedy for that. But Yeah, Dr. Rashi can impact our psychology, and that can impact our attitude toward money if it's connected to a money house or connected to a money planet. That's important. So, good question, Jan. Very advanced question. And Rayanne wanted to know, will the coming transits of Jupiter through the Gandanta harm world markets? If you you know mundane astrology and the astrology of world markets is very, very complicated. I mean, I have specialized in it. Um, um, you never want to say one piece of astrology is going to have like a major impact on the markets. Um, yeah, I'll come to your follow-up question in a minute, Jan. Um, uh, anyway, getting to Rayanne's question, you never want to kind of use one thing to predict what will happen to the world stock markets. I mean, once in a while you get kind of blacks and whites, and next year we have, look at September 9th, 2020 next year. I don't know if anybody's looked at it. I wrote an article about it a few weeks ago. Let me just show it to you. It's kind of interesting. I'm using South Indian lately, so for those of you who like North Indian, I apologize. I've switched after 30 years. So look at this kind of incredible configuration next fall. We have Jupiter in its own sign. It's pretty far enough away from K2 that K2 is not being afflicted by Jupiter. Jupiter's still retrograde here in September, but probably still pretty strong. It's probably getting close to going stationary. I'll have to look at that date. Um, Saturn is in its own sign. It's going to be close to be going stationary too in Capricorn. Mars is in its own sign of Aries. The moon is exalted in Taurus. Rahu actually has dignity in Gemini. The only problem with Rahu is at the end of the sign, which means it's Sandhi, and Sandhi nodes cause all kinds of problems. So this is not a perfect time because of the nodes. Venus is in Cancer, which is not the best place for Venus, but not a horrible place for Venus. Sun's in Leo here, until September 15th. Mercury is exalted in Gemini. Just look how much dignity we have this day. So sometimes you get these what I would call white situations where astrology is all very positive and the markets are, when people feel good, they buy, they invest, things go up. It's just kind of, there is something to that. And sometimes there are situations where, we've had a lot of, if you remember this summer, we had, which was kind of a dark time, and the markets didn't actually fall apart here. Let's look at 2019. If you remember this summer, we had that whole horrible mess with Sun, Rahu, Mars opposing Saturn, K2 very closely here. And most of you remember it was probably a difficult week to get through. The markets didn't totally fall apart during that time either, and I would consider this kind of a black time. And I had people who were investing in the stock market falling apart, and it didn't. So, the point that I'm making is the astrology of the markets is very complicated, and you have to look at many things. Jupiter Gandanta, we can go back and look at, we had Jupiter Gandanta last March. If we look at the stock market last March, and I did research on this, and I can look it up, but Jupiter Gandanta, isn't as bad as you think, because don't forget it's in Pisces Navamsha. So Jupiter actually does the best in the Gandanta because it's Pisces Navamsha. well, maybe the first 4 days of November, when it's, in the deepest part of the Gandanta, 2920 to 40, then it's a little bit emotionally upsetting, but it's going to be fine in Pisces Navamsha. So Jupiter Gandanta is not something that you could actually use to just predict that the markets will go down. You have to look at many things. And if you're interested in investment astrology, I mean, there's so much to study with it. That's why I have 43 lessons in it, but a good question. Um, um, Yeah, Daniela was asking, how can you tell how we recognize money obstacles in our chart? Yes, I've specialized in that. It shows up in many different ways. Usually, it's Saturn, K2, and Rahu, our favorite malefics. But there's so many different ways it can show up. K2 in the second house is going to have a problem with money because it just doesn't know how to save. K2 kind of scatters it all over the place. It doesn't hold on to it. You want to be successful with money, you've got to save it. Even if you don't make anything, you've got to save even 5 or 10% of it every week, even if it's just $5 or $10. It's the way you accumulate wealth. You have to save. Some people have problems with saving. Some people have trouble with income because maybe they're you can look in people's charts and see their blocks and their remedy. I can give you all kinds of remedies for those if you want to do a reading or you want to take the class. Jan had a question. Uh, the Dagda Rashis, the Ekadashi. I'd have to. I'm getting to the point where I can't keep everything in my head. I know Camilla, has said Libra and Capricorn are the burn signs. I would have to look at all my other reference works. It's possible, as you know, in Jyotish, there's like a zillion opinions about things, and sometimes tracing out what's true is what works. Now, if you have money problems because maybe your money houses are burned, and and it's Capricorn and Sag, and it's not Libra and Capricorn or something, then maybe that's proof of what's correct. I tend to be kind of scientific empirical. I've got my exalted Saturn to show for that. I test everything. When I do my investment work in the stock market, it's kind of like, well, what happened the last time we had Jupiter in the Gandanta? And you can look it up. It happened the end of March into the beginning of April. It happened for a long. This Gandanta is a lot quicker, Rayanne, because last time Jupiter was was March 27th to April 22nd, something like that. Jupiter was in the Gandanta, the deepest part of the Gandanta, for about a whole month, and that was kind of pretty troubling. This time the Gandanta goes much quicker. There's only like 4 days that it's in, the last 20 minutes of Jupiter, and so you always have to go back and test, and you can go back 12 years and see what happened 12 years ago. That's what I do, and but I wouldn't, the markets at the moment have been falling apart, and they have been a little bit crazy. Um, and the stock market fell last week, but then it rebounded 1,000 points on Friday, something like that. It's off the low. So markets are kind of crazy because of computerized trading, and Venus did just go into Libra on Friday. I think that's helping. So people who think the world markets are going to fall apart and we're going to have crashes and recessions, it doesn't work that way. It takes a long time for an ocean liner to turn around, and the stock market's like an ocean liner. It just doesn't turn around that quickly. There's just billions of and trillions of dollars invested in people's pension money, and pension managers don't just liquidate it. The market can fall 5, 10%, 20% even. Maybe we'll get a 20% fall, into the Jupiter Saturn conjunction. But anyway, again, I'm getting into investment astrology, which is my intention here. But anyway, I thank you for your question. Let's move on. So I wanted to get into this article that I had on tithing to give you something kind of practical that you can do to to increase your finance. So I wanted to teach you something practical today. And so so one of the things that, if you look at past karma, when you have an afflicted planet in your chart, it means you probably weren't very good with those things in past lives. So let's say you have an afflicted Jupiter, it's in the eighth house, and let's say it's in Capricorn. You're not going to have children probably, unless there's some mitigating factor. And if you really wanted children, well, you may or may not be able to overcome that karma, but certainly you could support children's charities, work with children on Thursdays, become a school teacher and work with children, so that you're kind of like, if you didn't do well with children in the past and you're denied having personal children in this life, you could do good deeds to kind of uplift Jupiter in this lifetime, so that you might support that karma either for the future or for alleviating it. So this is kind of true of everything. And if you have a weak Mars in this chart, you weren't good, you weren't a good soldier in past lives, you were weak in competition, you were lazy, you were tired, you didn't put out the extra effort that a good Mars does. And so you might need to donate to veteran societies, to soldiers on Tuesdays, the day ruled by Mars. So if you start looking at charts in this way, you realize that, um, and you can get more specific with signs and nakshatras and even navamshapadas. You can see very specific karma that maybe you've inherited. I sometimes use this one, if you, in a man's chart, if he has like Venus conjunct Rahu or Venus conjunct Mars, and he has a lot of problem with marriage and attracting marital partners that are difficult. It's probably in past lives he didn't treat women very well, and so he's working out that karma in this life. And so maybe he has to donate on a Friday and support Venus to a better women's group, because he just he didn't do it well last time. Maybe he's a little bit better this lifetime, but he's suffering in his relationship. He's got to donate to Venus. So if you start looking at charts that way, you start realizing, oh my God, when the karaka is weak, when the symbolic value is weak, then you have to support it. And then this specifically can be for money charts. One of the things that I always recommend to people is the Hawaiian Honopono. I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. Very powerful prayer, especially if you do it at night before you go to bed, when you go into the subconscious. You can think of a person that you're having trouble with, and you say, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. Now, you may be the victim in this life. You may think, how can I forgive them? Well, chances are you caused a problem in the previous life, and if you have it in this life, you better kind of offer it back. I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. This was developed by a psychiatrist in Hawaii who inherited all these serial killers in his prison, and he was in charge of healing them, which is impossible. And he just kind of prayed for them. I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. And they all got better. Very documented, very interesting story. A bunch of videotapes on it on YouTube, a bunch of books on it, very powerful stuff. So the secret of tithing, again, is that you have to kind of redress the past. If you made mistakes in the past, you have karma in this lifetime. You have to kind of do something. If you have, for example, if you specifically, when you tithe, you want to pick a day of the week related to the planet in question. If you have a weak moon, and you have problems with emotions or your mother or anything related to the moon, the mind, then on Mondays you need to donate to to things connected to the moon. If you have a problem with Mars, you donate on a Tuesday. If you have a problem with Mercury, you donate on a Wednesday. If you have problems with Jupiter, you donate on a Thursday. Venus, Friday, Saturday. Saturn, Saturdays. Rahu would also be Wednesday, or that's new knowledge that I have from my Rahu class. Rahu actually is co-owner of Virgo, which is in Jaimini astrology. So if you have problems with Rahu, you donate to Rahu on a Saturday or a Wednesday or both. And then K2, you donate on a Thursday. And then Sunday, of course, the sun. So what kind of charities do you donate to? Well, you can donate. I wrote this in the article. Some of you read it. If you have a weak sun, let's say you have sun in Libra or sun in the 12th house, you could donate to organizations that help single fathers. And there are fathers who end up raising their children alone. If you know one, you could volunteer to babysit their kids so they can earn money. I mean, I have a good friend who's in the situation now. He's a single father and he can't really work because he's got to take care of his kids. And so, somebody with a weak son could donate their time to help him free up his time. Um, you could donate to government projects. You can pay others' medical bills. The son's the Karaka for health. If you have trouble with the sun, you have problems with your own health, you donate to help other people's health. Obviously it makes sense. You can donate to temples, sun rules temples. You can donate to protect birds or lions or large cats, things like that. Um, and specifically, you should just kind of think about what's going on in your chart, what's going on in your life. I mean, if you're um, having problems with health, Karka for the sun, you should pay other people's medical bills or donate to other medical charities that use money wisely. Moon, helping your mother or women care for children. So on a Monday, you could donate to single mothers or associations that protect single mothers. There's a whole lot more of those than you imagine. Helping a single mother, maybe with babysitting or cooking for their children. I mean, that would be a form of donation. Helping Moon is, connected to depression and mental disturbances, right? If you have those problems, donate to alleviate mental illnesses in our society. It's a huge problem and no one's doing anything about it. You can donate to wildlife protection too. Mars, donating to brothers, veterans, police, public safety. See if you have a weak Mars in your chart. You have no energy. You get into you have Mars in Cancer or something like that. You can donate to the police, to the veterans, the fire department. You can um, help people who are going through divorce. You can help with legal funds and things like that. So I don't want to go through this whole thing. I've written it in the article, but what you do is you can look at. I'll pull up my chart. I'll show you how it works in my chart. Just to yeah, I'm Scorpio rising. Um, uh, so I have a number of problems. I mean, I have if we're analyzing money issues in my chart, and um, and or just karmic issues in my chart. Obviously what jumps out at me is my debilitated moon, which is um, uh, it's an Aquarius Navamsha, which is not really. It's in the sixth house here, and it's in a bad sign here. Um, it's also hemmed in by Papakatara Yoga, hemmed in between Rahu and Saturn. So, it really kind of reflects my mom, who had a very difficult life, but it also has impacted my emotional body. The debilitation is canceled by Mars, luckily, but um, so it's important for me on Mondays to kind of donate to. Um, I have Moon in Scorpio, so in a sense, Scorpio is often about mental health, isn't it? It's kind of deep psychology. So for me to donate to support mental health in our country, um, societies on a Monday would be a way of kind of helping my debilitated moon. Now, in terms of money, I have Rahu in the second house. Now, Rahu in the second house, it's in Sag, where it doesn't have a lot of dignity. It's exalted, and it's got dignity in the Navamsha chart here in Gemini, so it saves it. But my Rahu, tends to create up and downs in my finances. I have trouble saving money. I have Saturn aspecting Rahu. I've always had trouble saving money. My wife is very good at saving money, luckily, but I have trouble saving money. I tend to spend it too easily. And if I wanted to work on this problem, I would have, and I've got Rahu and Sagittarius here in Mula Nakshatra. Um, So specifically on a Wednesday or a Saturday, I could donate to organizations that fight corruption, it's Sagittarius. It might even be, Sagittarius is about priests and gurus and things like that. I mean, there aren't charities that I could to support, there are probably groups that kind of fight corrupt gurus and things like that, but I probably, need to, I could just donate to environment. Rahu is about fighting pollution and fighting environmental toxins and fighting, and fighting corruption. There's a great organization that I have donated to that fights corruption in government all around the world. So that's something I could do to help my situation. Um, okay. So anyway, there are all kinds of. I just wanted to, I have a whole lesson on this in the class. I don't want to do the whole lesson now. But I just wanted to, give you some of the main points, and get you thinking about it. So when you have um, so for example, I have Jupiter in the 8th house here, which makes me good at Jyotish, good at wisdom, good at spiritual teaching with K2, past life karma as a priest, all this good stuff. But it does own my 2nd house of money. So in a sense, I do need to on Thursdays support Jupiter by maybe donating to gurus. And I used to do this actually very regularly, supporting to my spiritual guru, donating to teachers, donating to, and Gemini is about teaching. My guru has a program called um, Yes for Schools, where they teach spirituality in the schools, and I do donate to that regularly. And I often do it on a Thursday to support the education of children. I don't have any children, Lord of the 5th and the 8th, but by supporting children's charities and children's spiritual education, I'm helping my 2nd house here. So there's just different ways that you can do that. I also kind of have an odd thing here. Um, my sun is very strong. It's my strongest planet because Lord of the 10th and the 5th, but it is 8 houses away from its own sign of Leo, and it is in Jupiter's nakshatra, and Jupiter is in the 8th house. So it does have some minor affliction to it. I have been very successful in business over the years. Sometimes I go through ups and downs, and one of the charities I donate to on the Sunday is Junior Achievement because I want to support. Sun is in Jupiter is in the sign of Pisces, is connected to children and to Jupiter. So I was looking for a charity that I could donate to that would support um, the business development of children because the 10th house is about business status. And I have noticed that when I do donate to them that, suddenly big business deals come through and things like that. So you can unlock karma by just even donating to charities. And so we'll have a whole 2-hour lesson on this, but I wanted to give you a taste of it so that you would have something practical. There's a lot of other, obviously you want to give to reputable charities. You don't want to, the Red Cross takes 50% of its money and pays its president $1 million and uses 50% for administration. That's not a good, not a good way to donate money. You can do service work also as donations. Sometimes people don't have any extra money. And traditionally in India, people do seva. So if you need to help Saturn, on Saturday you visit an old people's home, or you work at a soup kitchen to feed the hungry. If you need to help the moon on Mondays, you do volunteer work at a women's shelter and support women who've gone through a hard time, or you support mothers or help a mother so that she can get a break from taking care of her kid full time. If if you have problems with Mars, you could, donate and feed veterans at a veterans association. So even if you don't want to donate to charities, you can find charities to donate to. You can actually volunteer, and volunteer is even more powerful, I think, than donating money. Most of us are too busy to donate time, but you really get rid of the karma more quickly when you do service work. Service is always key. So I have lots of other money remedies we'll go through in the class. Um, there's specific remedies, that you have to do for the second and the 11th houses sometimes if there's problems holding on to money, and I go into all of this here. I did not want to do a full 2-hour presentation here. I did want to just kind of give you a taste of, how I teach and, what I do, um, and what the class is about. I will open up the mics for questions now, and um, Rayanne, I'm going to unmute you. Rayanne's been studying with me over the last year. Rayanne, would you like to share your experience taking classes with me? I don't mean to put you on the spot, but this isn't a plant. I think it's good sometimes. Can you do that?
Sure. Everyone has to have their own ways of studying, but for me, I took year-long courses for 2 years in Vedic astrology, and then it just didn't work in my life to be able to keep doing that. So it's been so helpful to me to study with Barry, where I can do one subject at a time. I can do it one day a week for a couple of hours. If I miss it, the information is all there. And then there's so much, Barry includes so much documentation with everything. So sometimes, my brain's just full and I can't take in anything else, but I keep the PowerPoints from his lessons, and then I can go back to it and go, oh, I get that now. So it's just a really useful, pragmatic way to study and get lots and lots of information, because Barry's always studying and bringing more information.
Thank you, Rayanne. I appreciate that. As a teachers are kind of Brahmins. We're not really allowed to promote ourselves in a sense. I can't tell you how great I am, but obviously I don't. If you get to know me, I'm actually very humble, and that's a problem because in the business world you can't be humble, and then no one sees you. As those of you know, I don't make videotapes every day like some of my colleagues, and they're wonderful videotapes. It's just not what I do, and those people, people like listening to podcasts. And so, if you listen to, I have a YouTube channel which has previews of all my classes. Let's see if you're interested in another class. I have previews like this on my Financial Astrology by Barry Rosen is my YouTube channel. There's about 16 or 20 tapes on it. You could friend my YouTube channel, but if you want to watch an introduction to my Varga class or my transit class or my Dasha class, all the intros to all those classes are there. So if you don't have time to study with me, you can certainly at least get a flavor on my YouTube channel of what I do, and I'm very, very specific. Okay, I'm gonna thank you, Ryan. I'm gonna open up. Look for questions here. Let me see if I can. Okay, I'll keep the mics open for a little bit. Sometimes it takes time to ask questions. Again, if you're interested in my class, which starts October 19th, again, if you're excited, and you can, I can, if you sign up, I will send you all, 9 videotapes and all the PowerPoints, and you can study ahead. And the whole purpose of the 1-hour classes every week is to ask questions, to go over your charts, to do more case studies, so that we can, one of the, I kind of learned this from some of my other colleagues. If there's no point in me if I have a lecture done and you can just listen to it whenever you have time, then the actual class time can be used for questions and case studies and looking at your charts and going deeply. So that's my intention with these 1-hour sessions every Saturday at 4 o'clock, is to go more deeply into your charts and stuff like that. But you're also for those of you who can't come, you know, I always record everything. So, but that's kind of there. So let me. The class is $295. For those of you who don't have credit cards and need a payment plan, I can work that out with people. I've done that before. If there are any special circumstances, you can email me. I don't like to turn people away. I do pour my heart into these courses, and you know, I don't earn my living teaching these classes. You know, I do it because it's my biggest joy. But I do spend, you know, those of you who've seen my classes, I mean, I spend countless hours putting together these classes, and you won't find this information anywhere. Okay. Other questions? Let's see. I'm going to, and you can type in the chat box. I'm going to try to unmute you all and see if anybody has a question, they can raise their hand on GoToWebinar. I will try to unmute you all and see if you have any questions. Some people need a live mic. If you want to be unmuted, you need to raise your hand or you need to type in the chat box. I think it's going to be a little. Last time I unmuted everybody, you know, I got everybody's barking dog and vacuum cleaner going on the tape, so I'm not sure it's the best use of time. Anyway, the class will start a week from Saturday on October 19th at 4 o'clock for the live question and answer sessions and case studies and additional material. For those of you, you know, I have taught many other classes before. They're very specialized: class on transits, class on dashas, a class on finding your blind spots. I've got 2 classes on Vargas. I'm currently teaching a foundation class, and I'm teaching a class on finding your life purpose. So I teach many classes. There's previews for all these classes. For those of you who like to watch tapes, what I call in the can, that have been pre-videotaped, you know, they're available on my website under courses, under the course tabs, and the previews are on the financial astrology channel. Any final questions? So for those of you studying with me, the next class will be about the houses in the second house specifically. So we'll spend a lot of time on the second house when we have our next class. And this was kind of an overview about spirituality and wealth, and really kind of putting money in context. You know, solving money problems, you know, does usually involves, you know, releasing karma and mantras and pujas and giving to charity, and, you know, just being aware of what's going on. And it does take, and sometimes it comes up in certain periods. You kind of have Saturn going through your second house in transit. You know, there are things that you can do to, you know, to help Saturn. And sometimes, you know, Saturn always takes a long time, and then Saturn goes into Capricorn and things are fine. So sometimes we have to be patient when we have money problems, but we have, you know, there are things that we can do to kind of release some of the karma. Let's see if there are any other questions. Okay. Well, I'm gonna, okay, if you want to pay for the class, you can go online to my website, appliedvedicastrology.com. And you can see that here, appliedvedicastrology.com. And look, I think it's on the right tab, even because it's featured, it's on sale because there's a early bird special through Monday. But there's a on the right tab, I think it shows up, and if not, you can look under the top course tab, and it says, and then you can find the course and you can click on it, and then you can pay on YouTube, on PayPal. If you don't use PayPal, you can email me and we can take, or you can call my office and we take a credit card by phone, or we can arrange other payment. So many ways to take care of it. Questions? Okay, I think, let me see if there's any more questions. I'm just trying to get the question tab open here. Somebody asked about cryptocurrencies. Yeah, I am thinking of adding an extra class on cryptocurrencies. It really belongs to my investment course. But I do have a chart for Bitcoin that's probably the genuine chart, and I do cover it every day in my newsletter, and I have been predicting it accurately for a number of years now as I've been covering it daily in my newsletter. Just in general, the chart for cryptocurrencies is a Sagittarius rising chart, and we've got Saturn in K2 and Sag, and we've had Jupiter, the Lord of Sagittarius, in the 12th house in Scorpio. And so, we haven't had good transits for cryptocurrencies, but then what's happening all of a sudden? Saturn's going to go into Capricorn, Jupiter's going to go into Sagittarius. So it would seem that sometime this November, that market will finally bottom and probably take off next year again. And so those of you, it's still kind of overvalued. I mean, I thought it could even fall more. I mean, when it was at 20,000, I was predicting that it would go fall quite a bit, and I haven't recommended buying it for a long time. It's still probably going to be lower with the current status of Saturn in the second. But I will have a class on it, but I'm not going to do a lesson. I'm not going to talk too much more about it now. If you're interested in investment astrology, I have a whole class on that. It's more specialized. It's when to buy gold, how to trade, how to buy silver, how to trade currencies, how to trade the stock market. I mean, investment astrology is very complicated, and I have 43 lessons on it. But I have my classes start at $695 for the first modules 1 and 2. If you want to study investment astrology with me, look in the financial astrology tab. This class is about personal finance because for the longest time I was teaching investment astrology, and very few people that are interested in trading and astrology, a very small group of people. And so then I realized that people kept emailing me, well, how do I improve my finances with Vedic astrology? So I put together this class. Okay, so it's 11:24. It was good spending time with you today. You can email me any questions at barry@appliedvedicastrology.com. You can visit my website at appliedvedicastrology.com, and you can visit my YouTube channel, Financial Astrology by Barry Rose. And again, shameless plugs here. I love doing this work. I don't make a living from it. My wife doesn't get to see me because I'm teaching 2 astrology classes on the weekend. It's just I have a passion for it. And it's not like I'm getting rich on any of this, but it's what I have to do. It's what I love most. And so I hope you'll join me in my classes now or in the future. Again, thank you for being with me today. I'll quickly stay on and unmute anybody who has a final question here. And if it gets a little crazy, I'm going to unmute you if anybody, sometimes people are shy. I'm going to unmute people. Bye, Catherine, I'll see you a bit later. I just unmuted you. Some people are on their phones. Jill, good to have you. Maduri, Rayanne, I just unmuted you. Anybody with final questions, I've just unmuted you. So the mics are open if you want to. Okay, Final Jeopardy answer is the Daily Double. Okay, guys, have a great Sunday. We'll see you in the future. Bye-bye.